So jumping right off the bat, you guys put out a timeline for the search process for city manager, and you came up with the start date for September of next year. Can you just walk me through that timeline? Why next year, and kind of how you guys got to this, announcement to say, hey, we're ready for a permanent position for that role?
Well, first of all, when we terminated the previous city manager and we knew we were going to have an interim city manager, one of the things that we thought about is, when do we want to start the process? And it was always anticipated that we would start the process of looking for a permanent city manager probably in this summer. And the reason for that is that we wanted to get into a position, we're not in any hurry because this is a big decision. And we wanted to get into a position where we were stabilizing city government. There was a consensus that we had some issues that needed to be addressed, and we wanted to get into a situation where we were doing a better job at City Hall of meeting basic needs. And if you look at the reorganization that's occurred and the differences that we're making in that regard, it ended up being that we did a pretty good job of predicting when it would be a good time to start that process. It's also important to note that we were able to get an interim city manager that's an award-winning city manager from the past and really knows the job. So it put us in a really good position to not need to rush as we make such a big, momentous decision, maybe the most important decision that this council will make.
Jumping off of that, interim, city manager Jesus Garza was actually the city manager, sometime during your tenure as your first time as mayor here. Right. Is there any possibility that he may be in the running to fill that role permanently again?
No.
Gotcha. So jumping off of that, what are the qualities you want to see in the city manager? Since you said you do have a timeline, but you're no rush. So what do you want to see when it comes to that role? Since you guys had some backlash with Kronk.
Oh, okay. I wouldn't wear backlash, but we had problems with the previous city manager. What you mean by that? Okay. Well, there's a couple of things. One is that we want someone that will build upon what we are trying to do right now, which is we want to turn over a city government that is working and takes care. Before we turn this job over to a permanent city manager, we want to have taken care of many of the problems that we felt like needed to be addressed, so that the new city manager will be someone that can look to the future and not have to repair problems that we've had in the past. Clearly, competence is one of the big things we're looking for. Common sense. Someone that has had experience as a city manager and being involved in the politics and the management of local government. We're also looking for someone that understands that Austin is a special place where we want to continue to be a place that works to address things like equity, wants to continue to address the kinds of things that we need to in order to be a city like we are, which is a worldwide recognized city. Someone that is open to change and helping figure out change. And then one of the last things I'll say about that is it needs to be someone that understands how this form of government works. And that is that we have a council, mayor and council, and a city manager that's supposed to manage the day-to-day operations in response to the policies that are created by the mayor and council. And it shouldn't require the mayor and council to have to ask for good management. We ought to just have good management and carrying out those policies. And I believe I think Austin's the kind of place that we're going to have a good opportunity to pick somebody that's first class.
Is there anyone in the running right now?
No, the process has only just begun. What I've done is I've put out a timeline, as you mentioned earlier. I've put out a timeline that will take us through September 1 of next year. The reason September 1 is chosen is because this time next summer, just like we're doing right now, we will start the budget process. And that not only takes a lot of time, but it's probably not fair to a new city manager to bring them in at the beginning of a budget process or the middle or even near the end of a budget process. I'm not sure which is the most unfair. So what we would do is get the budget passed in August of next year. Take the time to do the search, get the budget passed in August of next year, and then allow for September 1. But we're going to rely upon a professional search firm. Part of what we're going to do is the city will probably issue an RFQ on a professional search firm sometime first part of July. We'll want to make sure we get that. Even that, we need to make sure we get it right, and we'll take the appropriate time to do that, and then have them develop for us a list of candidates, also a community input process. Very important that we have a community input process. And I want the search firm to help us develop that based upon their experience. And then we will have them submit candidate proposals to us and have the council be in a position to figure out where it wants to be and have the community also get to meet the people that we are considering to be the next city manager.
Now, you mentioned you didn't want the new city manager to come in with, problems that need to be repaired. Can you talk about those problems that you hope to, stitch up before they come into that permanent role?
Well, you're seeing a lot of it already. For example, and I said the whole time I was running for mayor, I thought we needed to shake up City Hall. You've seen we have somebody new at Austin Energy. We wanted to make sure that we had the right person at Austin Energy, and somebody has been announced that we have an interim right now who's doing a good job, but we've announced a permanent general manager of Austin Energy. We have an interim working at the airport because, frankly, we're behind on the airport. In my view, we're at least 6 years behind on that airport. We need to get that moving at the right pace. Another example would be our development services department. We really need to get that in ship shape. So what we've done is McKinsey and Company, an international consulting firm, has come in. One of the things I said during the campaign I was going to do is basically do a performance review of the development services department. They have essentially done that, and we expect a report back from them shortly, and then we're going to have to implement that. So there's a variety of things, up to and including how we deal with public safety, how we address those that are living homeless. We're making progress on all of those things in a pretty aggressive way. If you stop and think that it's only been 5 months, 5.5 months now, we're moving pretty aggressively, but we want to turn over the local government in a way that's stable so that we can focus on the future and not have to be fixing a bunch of stuff.
So going back and touching on, the fallout with Spencer Cronk, when that happened, especially with the police contract union, a lot of the, Austinites, they lost some trust in the city when it came to that botch response time for the winter storm. How can you and the city itself, rebuild that trust now?
Well, we need to do the kind of job that we've said we were going to do. And I think we're doing that. I think sometimes it's certainly slower than I would like, and I know it's slower in some instances than the public wants to make sure we get things right, but we want to make sure we get things right. And sometimes it's just harder to get things moved. You can't move it on a dime. But I think we are doing a much better job of organizing City Hall in such a way that we can have success. And I think we're doing a better job of being willing to be imaginative and try new things so that we can provide success. But that's the way you build trust in local government. And I think we're on the right path. And
you were mayor in the 90s, I believe, like 97 to 2001, correct?
You got it right.
Yeah, so during that time, and then, how Austin has evolved now, and you're stepping into a new role, technically, a little different because, there's more people, more infrastructure. So is there something that you want to tackle now that you didn't even have to think about back then when you were first-time mayor here?
I wouldn't say it that way, but people do ask me frequently, what's the difference? And one of the biggest differences is that in 1997 to 2001, Austin was on its way to becoming a big city. we were starting to see the things that needed to be addressed. For example, when I was mayor the first time, we created the first ever affordable housing trust fund because we knew we were going to need to be addressing affordability in a certain way. We created we had a thing called the Mayor's Challenge Fund that helped with at-risk properties for affordability purposes. We created the Smart Housing Program that's still used today. We also created the first ever resource center for the homeless when I was mayor. Created the first women and children's shelter. So the downtown community court was a big part of all that. The point being, we were becoming a big city. What's happened over that 20 years or so is we're no longer becoming a big city, we are a big city. And so a lot of those issues have now come to scale. So what we have to do is we have to address them like a big city would. We've become a focal point in a worldwide information and knowledge economy. That requires us to deal with things with a sense of maturity that we probably should have had, but we may have been able to get away with not having 20 plus years ago. So, but being a big city is different than becoming a big city, and it brings different challenges.
So just going back to how you talked about evolving and kind of the qualities you want as city manager, and I know you were quoted in an article once the firing came out about you will not do business the way it was done with the police union contract and the response for the ice storm. So what will you not tolerate anymore so history does not repeat itself like it did with Kronk?
Well, I hate to keep going back. I want to look to the future, right? And I think I said it a minute ago, and that is what we need is someone that is forward-looking, someone that is competent, knows how to run a big organization, and has run a city as a city manager. I want somebody that has that experience because I think it is a unique set of skills. Even if you have been a great manager and been able to run other organizations, there's a unique set of skills. I want somebody that's open. I want somebody that is able to listen to what the policy directives are and then get those things done. And if we do it that way and we deliver to that next city manager a stable, it's not going to be perfect and it's not going to meet everyone's concept of perfection, but we deliver to them a stable government that is looking to the future, and we have somebody with those qualities, I think we'll set Austin, we'll be in a good position.
So throwing the past completely off the table, what is now your vision for the future? You know, not just as a person in your position, but as an Austinite, someone who lives here and calls this place home, and a message to those people that you are going to provide this vision as you so talked about here.
So if I think about it this way, I think about it that, so I was mayor, I got here to Austin, Texas when I was about 23 years old. I was mayor 1997 to 2001. And so that's been about 20 plus years. I have a granddaughter that's 5 and a granddaughter that's 2. 20 years from now, will we be the kind of city that they love the way I loved it when I was in my early 20s, and I loved it 20 years ago and love it today? 20 years from now, what will this city be? Will we make the decisions now that make us a great international city, or will we be dealing with decay because we didn't take the bold steps we need to take today? Many of our biggest problems today are a result of success. And we're not managing much decay. Now, there are some things that aren't a result of success, but we get to address them from a platform of success. We need to take advantage of that so that 20 years from now, those 2 little girls that I love so much, and everybody's got somebody like those 2 little girls, they love this city and they want to be here the next 20 years.
And do you think that Austin will be making those bold steps to ensure that?
So far, I'm very, very pleased with the way this council has moved forward on big issues. Everything from affordable housing. I would say we've done more in 6 months on affordable housing than a lot of people thought was ever going to be possible. on things like how we address the needs of those that are living homeless. We've made big progress, and there's more to come in that regard. How we deal with transportation. I think you're going to see great progress in that arena, including how we deal with Project Connect and light rail. Public safety. You've seen us take some pretty bold steps in changing the way we approach public safety so that we can get supplemental help and support from DPS so that we can drive down the crime rate, drive down response times. You've seen a lot of success going on at City Hall right now, and I believe we'll continue to enjoy that success.